Hey everyone, welcome to day 4 in our reading through the book of John. In John chapter 2, we're going to see Jesus change the water into wine. We're also going to see him cleanse the temple. First, let's look back at the questions that we had in yesterday's reading. So one of our questions was, what are John's disciples really asking when they say to Jesus, "Where are you staying?" I mean, that's just the surface question. You remember the story? John's with his disciples, sees Jesus, and he says, "Hey, there, that's the guy," right? Talking about Jesus. And then Andrew and Philip are like, well, if that's the guy, let's go follow him. And they start following him. We don't know exactly how long, but after a while, Jesus notices, and he's like, what do you guys want? Because they haven't really approached him yet. They're sort of keeping at a safe distance. Maybe they're trying to get up the courage to go talk to him directly. And so they have to say, what's going on? And they're like, well, where are you staying? And of course, they're not simply trying to find out where his quarters are for the night. Their desire is to actually spend time with him. And Jesus kind of looks past the surface, whatever's going on there in terms of being nervous or not articulate. And he says, well, come and see. And the text says they spend the day with him. And of course, they end up becoming 2 of the 12 apostles. So I just think it's really cool how Jesus looks past the surface and invites them to the thing that's deeper in their heart. On their part, of course, following Jesus is a deliberate pursuit to be with him and to get to know him. Right? Following Jesus or being a Jesus follower is not just signing up to receive ignorable notifications. Following Jesus is a deliberate choice to pursue a relationship with him. Okay, we also had some questions asking how these guys are examples of themes in the opening prologue of the book. And pretty much it all has something to do with somebody gives testimony, these people believe, and then in the case of Andrew and Philip, they turn around and give testimony to other people who then believe. So testimony and belief were important themes there at the beginning of the book. And in Nathanael's case, of course, he's skeptical at first. Right? We found the Messiah. It's this guy from Nazareth. And Nathanael's like, oh, come on. Can anything good come out of Nazareth? Well, come and see. And when Jesus sees him, before he can even introduce himself, start to get to know him at all, Jesus says, well, here's an Israelite in whom there's no deceit. And Nathanael does not take that as flattery because it's something particular about his character, probably something that he is correctly proud of, that he knows about himself. And Jesus is able to name that without having spent any time with him. So he doesn't take it as flattery. He takes it as a sign. And then Jesus is like, you believe after so small a statement? Well, you're going to see even greater things than these. And Nathanael also becomes one of the 12 apostles. So again, it's just really cool how Jesus is able to look past the surface and see something deeper with these characters. So in the reflection questions, how is what you really want reflected in your actions and decisions? Of course, this is going to be personal to you, and I encourage you to be sharing with your accountability partners. But we can just think of that phrase that we started all of this with: what gets our attention gets our affections. So if an outsider came in and did an audit of how we spent our time over a few days and just took the presupposition that whatever we're spending our time on is evidence of the things that are our goals, what would it look like? So in this deliberate pursuit of a relationship with Christ, if we fail to plan, it's like planning to fail. Remember that old proverb. So if we have a great goal, I think I should read my Bible more, but we don't have a strategy, it's sort of like planning to not actually read our Bible more. But there's plenty of things that you could have thought about, and I hope you had productive discussions with your accountability partners. Why are you impressed with Jesus? There's so many things here in this passage. It's really neat how thoroughly he knows people. And it's a supernatural thing, but think about it. God knows you and I as thoroughly as he knew Nathanael. And he still loves us, and it's really great. And I'm just really impressed how with all these characters, Jesus saw past whatever was initially on the surface. Where are you staying? Come and see. Follow me. Meets Peter right away, renames him, sees Nathanael, looks to his heart, says something that really speaks to him about his character. And I just wish that I could do that. That's a really cool thing. And all these guys are just giving us an example that kind of asks us the question, what kind of testimony does it take for us to believe? And how does that affect how we live? And then who will we tell? Okay, when we get on to chapter 2, We've got 6 paragraphs here in today's reading, and here are the questions that I would ask you to keep in mind. So in those first couple of paragraphs, what is Jesus' reluctance or the risk that he's taking in order to help at the wedding? And when you read it, don't get too hung up on the phrasing, because I know in our culture, if Jesus or a son said to his mother, "Woman," we would just kind of read it as disrespectful. But it's in that culture, the way that he speaks to her and addresses her as woman, that's not really a disrespectful thing. And then the question after that's going to differ depending on what translation you are reading that in. It's kind of a Hebrew idiom that's made its way into the Greek New Testament. But Jesus is basically saying, when she poses the problem to him, that's actually your concern, not mine. But what's his reluctance? Anyway, how is turning the water to wine an example of the themes in the prologue? We're going to ask that again about the next 2 sections. But there in that middle section, we're also asking, why is it that the leaders are asking Jesus for a sign? Okay, it's another great passage, and on to your reading for the day. Now on the 3rd day, there was a wedding at Cana in Galilee. Jesus' mother was there, and Jesus and his disciples were also invited to the wedding. When the wine ran out, Jesus' mother said to him, "They have no wine left." And Jesus replied, "Woman, why are you saying this to me? My time has not yet come." His mother told the servants, "Whatever he tells you, do it." Now there were 6 stone water jars there for Jewish ceremonial washing, each holding 20 or 30 gallons of water. Jesus told the servants, "Fill the water jars with water." So they filled them up to the top. And then he told them, "Now draw some out and take it to the head steward." And they did. When the head steward tasted the water that had been turned to wine, not knowing where it came from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew, he called the bridegroom and said to him, "Everyone serves the good wine first, and then the cheaper when the guests are drunk. You've kept the good wine until now." Jesus did this as the first of his miraculous signs in Cana of Galilee. In this way he revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. After this, he went down to Capernaum with his mother and brothers and his disciples, and they stayed there a few days. Now the Jewish feast of Passover was near, so Jesus went up to Jerusalem. He found in the temple courts those who were selling oxen and sheep and doves and the money changers sitting at tables. So he made a whip of cords and drove them out of the temple courts with the sheep and the oxen. He scattered the coins of the money changers and overturned their tables. To those who sold the doves, he said, "Take these things away from here. Do not make my Father's house a marketplace." His disciples remembered that it was written, "Zeal for your house will devour me." So the Jewish leaders responded, "What sign can you show us since you are doing these things?" Jesus replied, "Destroy this temple in 3 days, and I will raise it up again." Then the Jewish leaders said to him, "This temple's been under construction for 46 years, and you're going to raise it up in 3 days?" But Jesus was speaking of the temple of his body. So after he was raised from the dead, his disciples remembered that he had said this, and they believed the scripture and the saying that Jesus had spoken. Now, while Jesus was in Jerusalem at the feast of the Passover, many people believed in his name because they saw the miraculous signs he was doing. But Jesus would not entrust himself to them because he knew all people. He did not need anyone to testify about man, for he knew what was in man. Okay, read through it on your own again and think about these questions. We'll see you tomorrow.